Now, the White House says it's taken control of the press pool that covers President Trump. The pool system allows select organizations from television, print, radio, and even wire services into smaller spaces such as the Oval Office. The White House Correspondents Association has been in charge of rotating who was in the pool, but that system will now be decided by the White House press team.
A select group of DC-based journalists should no longer have a monopoly over the privilege of press access at the White House. All journalists, outlets, and voices deserve a seat at this highly coveted table. So by deciding which outlets make up the limited press pool on a day-to-day basis, the White House will be restoring power back to the American people who President Trump was elected to serve.
We can now bring in Jodi Ginsberg, Chief Executive Officer of the Committee to Protect Journalists, who joins us from New York. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Your reaction to this latest move from the White House?
This is a terrible move, to be honest. The way that the press pool works is that those who are in the press pool, which, as you say, is a small group of people, because you can't have the 800 journalists who are members of the White House Correspondents Association all crowd into a room with the president everywhere he goes. They provide information to everybody else. So all of the news about the president that people get from their local radio stations, for example, or in their regional newspapers will have come very often from the press pool. And it's vital that those are independently selected, that they're not in the gift of the president and the administration whom they are covering.
Donald Trump and the Republican Party are all about protecting the First Amendment. Given that Donald Trump, vilified the media during his first term in office, but still continued to interact with the media, why do this now?
Well, this has come, it's believed, in reaction to something that the Associated Press, one of the wire news agencies, again, a service that many other news outlets use, I imagine including France 24, has done, which is it is said in its style guide, which is used by many, many news organizations, it will continue to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of Mexico. Donald Trump has said that within America, it should be known as the Gulf of America, and has barred the Associated Press from the pool. And this seems to be an extension of that. What it is an attempt to exert more and more control over the press and over the information that the public receives. So even though this was framed as for the people, actually this is not serving the people at all.
But Jodi, I saw that a judge in the United States has declined to immediately restore the AP's access to the White House. So then what avenues do media organizations have if the legal avenue doesn't rule in its favor?
Well, the legal avenue is still proceeding. So that case will be heard later in March. So the legal avenues are proceeding. The legal system still remains strong in America, and we hope that those legal avenues and the constitutional protections afforded, as you mentioned, via the First Amendment will hold strong. What's been very important is that we've seen news organizations from both sides of the political fence come together on this. We heard one of Fox News's reporters, who is a member of the White House Correspondents Association steering committee, come out very strongly against yesterday's announcement regarding the press pool. We've seen organizations like Newsmax and others traditionally sitting on the right who've come out in defense of the Associated Press, and that's really vital. This isn't about partisanship. It's about the rights of all of us to have access to free and independent information.
Is this about shaping the narrative, if you will?
Absolutely, it's about shaping the narrative. And we've seen that before. Look, Trump is not the first person to, and certainly not even the first president in the United States, even to take issue with how news outlets cover them. Obama had a similar issue with Fox. But what's important to understand is that in all cases, we need, for democracies to flourish, a free and independent press. And the more control that the executive branch exerts on news outlets, the less free information we have. And we need journalists who are able to hold power to account, to investigate, to report freely and fairly. And if the government, if the executive is controlling that narrative, we cannot be certain that we're getting an accurate picture of what's happening.
What I don't understand about this move from the White House is that you're going to have the legacy media establishments like the Fox News or New York Post, and also the fringe media figures in the United States like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, who are going to do Donald Trump's bidding regardless.
Well, this is a first salvo, right? We don't know what's happened. I mean, I've been in the US now for 3 years. The last 4 weeks have been like experiencing whiplash. We don't know what may come next. So this is the first announcement that the White House is taking over control of the press pool, something that the White House Correspondents Association has been successfully overseeing since the 1950s. So we don't know what may come next. And this is just the beginning, I think, of the ways in which we may see the new administration, seek to control the media.
Jodi, what do you make of the fact that Donald Trump, he has these policies now against the media, as we've just seen from this latest announcement, yet at the same time, he talks a lot to the press. We have seen him give so many press conferences, more than Joe Biden. It seems that Joe Biden would never have done a policy like this, yet he was shielded from the press.
Well, Donald Trump certainly likes to control the narrative by speaking as much as possible to as many people as possible. But he also uses his own channels, for example, Truth Social, to push certain messages. He very much understands that the president, particularly in the United States, is a popular figure, and he wants to appeal to as wide a range of people as possible and to be seen in as many places as possible. So I think that's part of his instinct is the performative instinct to be able to speak to as many people as possible.
After his first term in office, a lot of media organizations, scratched their heads and figured out how they treated Donald Trump during his first term. Do you think they've learned any lessons at all?
I think one of the things that has been striking about the last certainly 8 years is a great deal of focus on investing in local journalism and the importance of local reporting. There was a real disconnect between what was being reported at national level often and what people were experiencing in their local domestic communities. And that is a difference, I think, and that is a potential strength as we enter this new period, that local news outlets have had some investment and so on. I think current news outlets are really struggling still with how to report accurately. I mean, if you give again the example of the Associated Press, I don't think that they would have ever thought that sticking to its principles that it uses worldwide would have landed itself in this position where it sees itself ostracized. This is an organization that traditionally calls the elections in the United States, that so many news organizations rely on for information about what's happening in the United States, and now finds itself completely ostracized from the highest levels of government. So I think people are having to adjust very quickly. Of course, what worries us when we look at places like Hungary, for example, like Brazil, is that we may start to see, and probably are already seeing, what historians call anticipatory obedience. People starting to self-censor for fear that they may be slapped with a lawsuit or harassment if they don't do the bidding of the new administration.